Grandma, what's wrong?
I heard the song again, Ember. Someone is about to die.
And the thing that bothered me most wasn't what she had just said. It was that she had never been wrong before. Welcome back to Sweet Tea and Whispers. My name is Ember Ashcroft. Tonight, we're talking about whispers, warnings, and superstitions. The things Southern families pass down from generation to generation, whether they admit they believe them or not. Growing up, there were always ghost stories, but the ghost stories were usually told with a laugh and a smile at the end. That's how I knew they were just stories, because the real stories, those were usually told with fear, with tears, and sometimes they were told with silence. My grandmother didn't like to talk about the song, but we could always tell when she'd heard it. Grandma wasn't what most people would call a superstitious woman. At least that's what she would tell you. Until New Year's Eve rolled around. Then suddenly, we had rules. Every year she made pork, greens, black-eyed peas, cornbread, coleslaw, and boiled or fried cabbage. Honestly, I think she was trying to secure every possible form of prosperity available in the South. Apparently, one form of luck wasn't enough. If you grew up here, you probably know the traditions. Pork is supposed to bring progress because pigs root forward. Green represents money. Black-eyed peas bring luck. Cornbread symbolizes gold. And cabbage means prosperity. And those aren't the only rules. You didn't do laundry on New Year's Day because you might wash a loved one right out of your life before the year was over. And you didn't do housework either because whatever you did on New Year's Day was supposed to set the tone for the entire year. Most people claim they don't believe any of this, right up until January 1st. Then suddenly, nobody wants to tempt fate. Did you know that's where fireworks came from for New Year's? I only learned this recently, and I'm almost 46 years old. Apparently, all of those fireworks weren't originally just for celebration. The noise was supposed to drive away evil spirits and bad luck for the coming year. If you didn't have fireworks, people would bang pots and pans and blow their horn instead. Which sounds ridiculous until you realize half of us would probably still do this just to be safe. My grandmother wasn't that different from most Southern grandmothers. She had lived through hard times that most Gothic novels could only borrow pieces from. And one day I hope to tell her story. But for now, we'll start with the song. Occasionally she would wake up in the middle of the night and hear a particular song playing. It was just playing, like someone had turned a radio on somewhere in the house. She would get up and search every room trying to find where it came from, but there was never a source. Eventually, she would return to bed, but she never went back to sleep, because she knew what was coming, and soon, someone was going to be gone. Her sister had something similar, but for her it wasn't a song, it was a dream. She said she would dream that a curtain would open, almost like sitting in a movie theater. Then she would watch the scene play out. Maybe a car accident or a funeral, someone getting sick, or someone dying. She didn't believe that this was anything special like a gift. She believed God was showing her something before it happened. Not so she could stop it or warn someone, but so she could be ready when someone needed comfort. And that's the part I always found interesting. Neither of them treated it like a gift, and they never bragged about it. They whispered about it. When they talked about it, that was all it was, whispers. I got very good at pretending I wasn't listening. I would sit quietly with a book or stare at the television, but I listened to every word, because I had songs and dreams of my own. I called them God whispers, little nudges, warnings. Feelings arrive before the facts do, and it's not just me. A lot of my families have experienced similar things to one degree or another, some more than others. But the older I get, the more often it seems to happen. Maybe that's because I've stopped assuming I'm crazy and started paying attention. Because every Southern family seems to have somebody, The person who just knows things. They know who it is before the phone rings. They know something's wrong before anyone says a word. They have dreams that come true or feelings they can't explain. Most family don't call them psychic. They just say, I don't know how they knew, but they did. If you live in the South, you've heard different versions of these stories. People will tell you not to whistle after dark. The belief was that whistling could attract spirits or haunts or things you really didn't want finding you. In other places, people say if you hear someone call your name from the woods at night, don't answer, because whatever called you might not be who you think it is. 3 unexplained knocks at the door has long been considered a warning that death is near. And many Southern families still cover mirrors after someone dies. Some believe a soul could become trapped in the reflection. Others believe mirrors become a doorway between worlds during a passing. Looking back, I don't think these stories survived because people believed every word. I think they survived because they carried a warning. Stories have a way of teaching lessons people remember. Don't wander into the woods alone. Pay attention to your surroundings. Be careful after dark. Watch out for one another. Sometimes the lesson survives long after people forget where it came from. And honestly, this is where a lot of Hollow Creek came from. Before there were characters or a mystery or bones, there were stories. When we would visit family, we'd usually sit on the porch after dark, and the adults would talk and the kids would listen. Then the stories would start. There would be family stories and church stories, and then ghost stories, and stories about people nobody could quite explain. Stories about things that happened years ago, but were still being talked about. These were at family reunions, church dinners, at kitchen tables. I learned more family history from these stories than I ever did from a history book. And if I'm being honest, I probably contributed a few of my own. I still love scaring my cousins with scary stories after dark, which probably explains a lot about me as a writer. Hollow Creek wasn't built from one story. It was built from hundreds of stories that seemed unrelated until I started connecting them together. When I first started writing Hollow Creek, I thought I was writing a mystery. Then the story started becoming something else. The deeper I dug, the more I found myself exploring questions about belief, about those family stories I'd heard, and the things we inherited that weren't physical. Hollow Creek was never meant to be one mystery. It was one story, a very long story. The first book I wrote ended up being divided into 4, and that was just scratching the surface. The problem is that the beginning isn't really the beginning, and the ending isn't where you think it is. Sometimes to understand what happened, you have to start in the middle. Before the thunder introduces the mystery, where the sky breaks begins pulling back that curtain. Future books will dive deeper into the history of the creek and the families connected to it. We find out why Clara has visions, and if she's the only one. Future books will dive deeper into the history of the creek and the families connected to it, and the things that have quietly been shaping Hollow Creek for generations. Because there are things in Hollow Creek that people have different names for. Spirits, ghosts, angels, demons, blessings, or curses. Depending on who you ask, they all describe the same thing from different directions. And as the series grow, so does the world. What started out as a small town mystery became something so much larger, because everything is connected. The creek, the families, the visions, the stories, all of it. Even the things in social media. Maybe that's why stories survive. Not because they're true, but because there's enough truth in them that people refuse to let them die. Sometimes these stories say stories, and sometimes something happens that makes you wonder, is this true? Is this real? And if it is, how do I find out more? And there's ways, but most people here, they don't want to mess with that. But I did. And it was a mistake. There's one story in particular that started out with a Ouija board, and I mentioned that in episode 1. It ended up with my entire family trying to figure out exactly what was living in our house. My dad knew about it, but it wasn't interested in him. It didn't bother him nearly as much as it bothered the rest of us. So next time, I'll tell you about the Ouija board story, the ghost, and why what started as a game became one of the stories my family still talks about today. Until next time, if you have a family story, a superstition, or something you still can't explain, send it to me and let me know if I can share it on future episodes of Sweet Tea and Whispers. Keep listening for the whispers, because sometimes the stories we inherit aren't the strangest ones. Sometimes the strangest stories are the ones we create ourselves. Next time, we're going to talk about that. So until then, stay safe.